So, as I was playing today with some of my friends in a little bit lower of ranks, I was wondering to myself, why can't I carry all of these games? And why does it seem like in so many games, I just simply put, can't carry them, and no matter how well I do, that game's a loss. And today I want to talk about that and why in a lot of cases it feels like you can't carry a game. Now, I've talked about a lot in the past how you can get better to do that, how you can improve yourself, specific tips about actually carrying certain games, but today I want to talk about again why this happens so often and why it often so much feels like you just can't carry in competitive Overwatch, I guess specifically Season 9. With that said, let's just get started. And I think the first thing I want to kind of remind you guys about, I guess, about Overwatch is that it was a game made to be played around teamwork, made to be played around team comps, made to be where you're switching all around, where everybody has an important part in their team, and overall it's a game where teamwork is supposed to trump individual skill for the most part. And I think that's kind of hard to keep in mind, because while you're watching the best players play the game, you're watching them and you're thinking, hey, that guy's carrying a lot of their games, of course I can probably do that as well. And yes, if you can become good enough, you can eventually kind of overturn, I guess, the amount of teamwork that's needed to win in a game. But I feel like especially when you're just anyone that's not one of the best people as your character, teamwork does matter a lot. And oftentimes, again, teamwork does triumph individual skill. I mean, if your team knows exactly where to go in, exactly when to go in, they're more likely to win that fight. I think especially, let's say, if you're a Genji player. Let's compare a very good Genji player to an average Genji player. Well, if a very good Genji player gets in there, sure, maybe sometimes he can get a kill by himself, maybe sometimes he can maybe even get two, but if you have a average Genji player instead that's playing very well with the Lucio and playing very well with the Winston, they're a lot more likely to get a lot more stuff done more often and just be a lot more consistent, and they don't need those solo picks, they don't need those solo pop-offs, they can just work together to get kills, and that's just kind of how the game works. So when you're playing, I guess kind of remember that. There is still a lot of room for individual skill, there still is a lot of room for you improving, you getting better, you carrying that game, but don't get too pissed when you just can't carry every single game, because the game's not 100% designed around that ability and designed to do that. And I don't think that's personally a good thing or a bad thing. That's just kind of how it is. But again, do keep that in mind and try not to get too angry at yourself. And I guess a way that you can kind of circumvent this is you can duo queue with people that are very good with your character, and that will essentially give you a half decent amount of teamwork no matter what. And then it can also make so that your individual skill will kind of shine, because, well, you're always going to be in situations where you're going to be able to do well, you aren't going to have to focus as much on your teamwork, and you can focus on your own skill. Again, let's say that you're a Genji player, maybe duo queue with a Winston. I think that can make your individual skill matter more, while also, I guess, adding some teamwork. So there you go with that. I guess that's kind of a way to fix that. But let's kind of switch perspective right here, and let's pretend that you're the duo queued Winston, or that you're a solo queue Reinhardt, or anything like that. I think a lot of people playing Winston, Reinhardt, Mercy, Mora, all these characters oftentimes kind of assume that they will be able to hard carry if they become good enough as them, and that they don't really have to rely on their teammates. And I think a thing you kind of have to figure out is that depending on your teammates, and depending mainly on the character that you pick, sometimes you will have to be reliant on your teammates, and you're the one that decides if you want to be reliant on them or not. Obviously, if you're playing Mercy, you're going to need your teammates to do stuff, and sometimes your teammates just simply put won't be able to. And if you really hate that fact, maybe you should play Zen, where you can do a lot more by yourself. Maybe you should play Lucio, where you can do more by yourself. Or maybe you should play the new hero, Brigitte, where you can do more stuff yourself. It really depends what you think is more important and what you really care about more. I mean, if you really want to hard carry by yourself, keep that in mind as a factor. I don't think that you can pick up these characters and then go around, you know, just crying to people that you can never carry as them, because that's just kind of how their games are designed. That's how their kits are designed. And while you can do some stuff to circumvent that, and while of course there are great Winston players, great Mercy players, great Reinhardt players, I think for the average player, you shouldn't just expect that you can hard carry as everybody in every situation, because, you know, the world should be fair. I should be able to do that. I mean, the DPS can do that, so why can't I? Don't think that way. Just think critically, think smart, and, you know, if you want to play a character that can just play by themselves and play out of their mind, pick a character that can do that. Just, I guess, kind of keep in mind that basic thought process, because I think a lot of people kind of forget about that some characters are just designed differently than others. And that's, again, not a good or bad thing. That's just kind of how the game works, and that might be why you feel like you can't carry some games. Now, let's go to a different situation, and let's say that you're one of the players that keeps solo queuing, keeps getting into that game, and keeps playing by themselves. and by some miracle, they hope that they'll be able to win 1v6. I think you're going to have to realize by now that that's a possibility, but probably not the best possibility to aim for. When you get into a game, you should not be thinking, how can I hard carry this game? You should be thinking, how can I help my teammates win this game? And that doesn't mean that you're going to have to always switch off your character, that you're going to always have to change up your playstyle completely. It just means you're going to have to try to play in a way that kind of supports the people on your team, and I guess makes their job as easy as possible. Because if their jobs are easy, it's going to be hard for them to mess up, and I guess you're going to have a much higher chance of winning that game. I just say again, don't go into rounds hoping that you can get a miracle 1v6 carry, because especially at higher ranks, when everybody's good enough that they can actually kind of counter you, that won't often work. But I guess I should mention something that's kind of the exact opposite. I know there's a lot of people that try to like 1v6 by themselves, carry by themselves, but also there's a lot of people that just kind of bow down to everyone else. I mean, they just keep switching their heroes, they'll play whatever, they'll do whatever. Just don't do stuff to me. But I think that's also a bad way to play the game, and if you're complaining about never being able to carry in that situation, I think it should be pretty obvious why you can't. You shouldn't always be swapping off your best heroes, and just because a hero may completely fit this current team comp doesn't mean that you can play that hero, and doesn't mean that you should be playing that hero. You should kind of keep in mind that you should be trying to go for the people that you're the best with. And while I should recommend you guys that you do at least know one tank, one support, and one DPS, you shouldn't have to play all of them, and you shouldn't even try to play all of them. I think if you're one of the players that always switches, that always fills, that always does all that stuff, no wonder you're losing, because you're never playing the people that you're good at. You're never getting better at any characters, and you're just kind of gonna get stuck where you are. I think you should try to find a good, sweet ground between 1v6ing and switching all the time. It does depend, I guess, on the player, but please don't let people walk right over you. So let's go to just a different point right here, because we've been talking about pretty similar stuff. Another thing that I think you should keep in mind when you're trying to carry an Overwatch competitive, and I guess a reason to why sometimes I feel like you're playing out of your mind but you can't carry, is the fact that sometimes getting picks in Overwatch by yourself may not matter as much as you think, and sometimes being better at team fighting can be more important than getting picks. And I think the easiest example of this is with Widowmaker. Oftentimes I'll be picking up Widowmaker, I'll go on to her, I'll get a pick pretty early on the first point, but somehow we don't get that point. And how we do that? I mean, I got the pick, we should be going in there, we should be winning that. But sometimes, maybe I'm getting picks, but after the team fight starts, I'm not supplying way too much into that team fight, and I'm not making that team fight have enough damage throughout it, or maybe just sometimes I could have been helping in some other way throughout the team fight. And that's something you should kind of keep in mind, that while getting picks are very important, in Overwatch, sometimes being better at team fighting and being better at enabling your teammates could be the difference between winning and losing, not always just getting kills by yourself. That's a thing that I think a lot of people kind of forget, but it is important. Getting picks doesn't always win every single game. And the final topic I wanted to talk about was win rates. And I think a lot of people, when they complain about Overwatch or play Overwatch competitive, they think that, yeah, I just can't carry my games, I can't win, and, woe is me, what a hard time. But oftentimes, you are doing better than you think. And especially if you look at your win rate and you have around like a 51 to 52% win rate, maybe even 53, you are doing well. You are somewhat carrying your games. And while maybe you aren't winning every single game, a lot of the times, if you're in a certain rank, you probably kind of deserve to be in that rank. And you are going to have to become vastly better to carry that game. You don't need to hard carry every game. I think that's another thing that should be mentioned. Just more games. And if you can become just a little bit better and just win a slightly higher percent of your games, let's say you up the 52 to the 55 or something, you're going to start climbing and you're going to start being able to, again, I guess, win more games. So that's a good benefit. I think that it's kind of hard to tell, I guess, when you're doing well, and sometimes you'll just get a loss and a loss and a loss, and you feel like, hey, why couldn't I carry those games? And that could account to all the previous reasons I've given. But in the end, kind of just keep in mind that if you're just winning above half your games, you're at least doing something right, and you shouldn't get way too mad at yourself. There's always room for improvement, obviously, and there's always ways to try to get better, but don't get too mad at yourself, because it is a game, and it is something that you should be trying to improve on, to get better, and to have more fun as. But you shouldn't be hitting yourself over the head way too much because you aren't being able to carry every single game. That's really just unreasonable of yourself. But anyways, that's all I'm going to say about this topic today. I've just been experiencing a lot of people kind of complaining that they can't carry. I've been complaining somewhat, been playing with some people that sometimes complain about this, and really, I thought it would be an interesting topic to go over and to try to talk about the main points to why it feels like you can't carry a lot of your games, and I hope that I kind of went over some of those. And in a lot of my other videos you can check out on my channel, I talk about how you can get better to carry more games, what specifically you can do to win some more games, but today I just want to talk about, I guess, the root fear in yourself, or the root cause of feeling this way. Anyways, as always, guys, though, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. Comment down below what you'd like me to talk about in the future. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.